Hey everybody, BTO Pro here. Today I'm going to make a Polymer web component for something that does word count. So I have a need to do word count in a project. So we're going to do something that's not Axe related because we do use Polymer for lots of other things. So what the need is in our little studio environment that we have here, we need to know what the word count is on submissions and on so this area of text, and also on like comments. So it would be useful to know, if this was real data. It would be useful to know that there's one word here, so that instructors at a glance could skim through or read that data off into a list and be like, oh, well, you didn't put a lot of effort into this, right? Because one comment that has a ton of words or one post that has a ton of words is at least a half-decent indicator that of effort put in, right? Especially if it's a writing assignment. If you know it's like 50 words, and it's a writing submission, then there's probably something up, right? So it's not grading, but at least can help give an indicator. So I searched webcomponents.org, my favorite phrase to say over and over again, webcomponents.org, 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 for an element that did word count. I couldn't find one, but I did find this Microsoft Developers Network, Mozilla Developers Network, slightly different. Series of examples as far as web components, and they have one that's a vanilla web component. So let's look at what a vanilla web component looks like in this case, and it'll give you an indicator if you followed like why you mentioned vanilla web components, Brian, but why don't you use these as opposed to Polymer elements? So when you write a vanilla web component, you have to use basically the syntax of creating one, right? So in this case, attach a shadow root to this, so that implements shadow.dom, extend an existing HTML element. In this case, this is one that extends paragraph. So this would be like a flavor of a p tag in this case. Append items to the shadow root based on text that comes in this case. So this is going to look at the text that's inside of our element. It's going to generate some text that does a count words, and then we can see from count words that function is looking at whatever the text of who's in here, but that there's shadow DOM and that has text passed into it. Can you see maybe why I want to do this? So generally speaking, this is why I don't use vanilla type of components. Is not that this is terribly hard to follow, but there's a ton of syntax here to do things you're going to do all the time anyway, right? So you're always going to probably want to generate elements that create a shadow root. So why would you keep doing that over and over again? You're going to have to manipulate that slotted content in some fashion. So again, why would you keep doing that over and over again? So this is generally why I shy away from vanilla elements personally. It's not like it's not a big deal in my mind to use something like Polymer that's really slim, other than if you want zero dependencies, which there definitely is an argument to be made that it's nice to have no dependencies of any kind on libraries or frameworks or anything. But you can see in this case, this element extends P. This is an older syntax that you could find in some Polymer elements as well, but I believe it's been deprecated. So in like the V0 spec of web components, you could do this. You could do like P is, and it would allow you to kind of step between worlds almost like, so this would be a paragraph to things that didn't understand what a web component was, but to things that did understand what a web component was, this would kind of escalate it. You can still do this syntax. I see it quite frequently. It's certainly not preferred, and especially as more and more things support web components natively, it's going to be less and less of an issue. But this would let you ride, without a polyfill and like kind of just give progressive enhancement to things that support it, I guess. So let's remake this in Polymer so that we can get this component in here. So this is going to show end-to-end workflow stuff. So LRN dev, it's our little dev factory. I'm going to build a new component. We're going to call this word count because there's nothing that does word count right now. And so another aspect of what I don't care for in the example code is that their word count says, if you saw from, go to the index. If you saw from here, the idea would be in theirs that I would take this content and paste it in here, and it would give me a word count of what it's wrapping. I don't really want to start having to put word count as a full-on element on everything potentially. I mean, I guess I could do it that way. So it would have to wrap whatever it is. If it's going to wrap whatever it is, it should have no style implications for starters. I get this question a lot. What do I do here? I am still, so these two kind of go together. So like if you're running Polymer 2, then you're going to need the 1.2 at this point version of Web Components.js. It just has to do with the handling of how it gets registered with the browser. I really could use some help in understanding what the fundamental difference is between these two as to why I have issues with Polymer 2. There's some upgrading of code to run in what's called hybrid mode. And if you run in hybrid, your elements will work in Polymer 1 or 2. From testing, a ton of our elements work in 2, even though they say that they use 1. But not everything just yet, and I haven't had time to really resolve it. To me, it's not a big deal. But so I always use the 0.74 version of the polyfill, and then Polymer 1.x.x. Once Polymer 3 comes out, this is going to be like a Drupal type of thing where I just jump versions. So I adopt every other basically. But okay, so word count is there. I'm going to call up word count and put it into my Sublime text editor. Okay, word count. All right, so a word count element has nothing to it. Now I don't want a schema. I don't want to do any other implication. I just want to implement Polymer. We're going to say count the words on whatever this wraps. Okay. And I don't care about that. Don't really have microcopy associated with this. Okay, so we have word count element. And now I'm going to do something probably looks a little weird. I'm going to delete all the data binding. We're just going to do slot. It's the only thing that's going to be in here is slot. And so this is going to display block, but honestly it should have like no style implications at all, to be perfectly honest, but we'll just say that it's a block level element. Things could override it if they need to. All right, I'm going to dump the behaviors out of here. I'm going to dump properties entirely, actually. This isn't going to have any properties. Okay, so we want to do a word count. This is a way easier element than other ones I've done. There we go. And we're done. No. Okay, so what we need to do is go back to that example code. All right, and go to main.js here. All right, so what are the important things from here? The important things are basically this count, there we go, count words thing, right? And so we need to count words, which it's just going to take the inner text of whatever is in the element, and then it's going to tell you, or like write a little sentence basically that has the word count. Now, in this case, it looks like it's actually eating what goes in it and then putting this here, which I'm not going to do, or putting a span. I'm going to use an interesting little, maybe actually we will use a property to do this. Yeah, because it would be nice for data binding. So let's do words, right? So words, and this will be a number, whoops, number, and then maybe we'll add one for word text. And words text is going to be a string, and it's going to be computed. Or no, sorry, it's not going to be. Yeah, it can be computed. Computed based on, so let's see, compute words text, and we'll add another one, text to output. All right, and then we'll add another property in here, and this is going to be prefix text. And so prefix text is going to be words prefix. The reason I didn't write prefix directly is that prefix is kind of a reserved attribute. I don't want to override that, or else you wouldn't be able to apply schema to whatever you're working on, which would suck. So, okay, type do string, and value for this, I'm going to initially say that it is just words colon. Okay, so that. So that way someone could translate this to their own language, or they could, override this to say the word count is, right? Okay, so we've got words prefix. I'm going to do something weird with this though, with words text rather. I'm going to reflect to attribute true. All right, and we'll get to why I'm going to do that later. Okay, so I don't need any of the hacks binding. I do need a compute words text, and I need to do something with it. So words text should happen whenever words changes or words prefix changes. And the idea here is that I'll take these two and mash them together, basically. So there's I'm going to need to do something with attached here, and I like to borrow code I've written previously. Let's look at the way that hacks works when it comes to noticing things that have been added to it. So in its attached, actually it might be in its ready lifecycle. There we go. In its ready lifecycle, you can do a Polymer Observer, if you will. And so what this is going to do is it's going to notice when nodes are either added or removed from its slot. And then whenever that happens, so like think of it as a mutation observer, if you're familiar with those, you're noticing that something has changed in the DOM, except this helps broker the difference between light DOM and shadow DOM in Polymer land. So all right, I'm going to put one of those in. I'm going to put that in a ready lifecycle. Okay, whoops. Ready function, blah, blah, small function. Okay. All right, so now I've got that in there, observe nodes, and then we're going to take out the guts of this stuff. So now that's just if nodes are added or if nodes are removed is effectively what that is saying. And then I'm going to get rid of my little silly comments. Okay, so if things are added or if they're removed, but this is going to run a function against each of them. I don't even need that, to be perfectly honest. I just need to know, like, if stuff's added or removed, right, which means it changed, right? So if stuff's added or removed, which means it's like any observation of any kind, then I'm going to run this dot update words or word count. Okay, and actually we'll just make that words. Okay. Update words. And so when we run update words, we're going to look at the slot, right? So this is going to help us notice that the content dumped into the slot has changed in some way. All right, so let's look at that. Let's do update words based on data in the slot. So now we can get into slot management here. So we haven't really talked about that at all. So you want to know or notice change inside the element or figure out what the heck it is, to be perfectly honest. And you need to resolve the difference between light DOM and shadow DOM. This is where the Polymer.dom function is a lifesaver. It's extremely helpful to know what is in there effectively. So this gets you access, kind of like if you think of this element I'm working on right now, that gets you access to this element and brings it in scope in a way that you can actually work with it. So we're going to try it first. I'm just going to try inner text. We're going to have to do some console.logging here to see if this actually will get wired together correctly in the first place, because I'm not positive. So inner text, I believe, is the way that I want it. Just validating another frame. Yeah, okay, so inner text is the thing I'm thinking of. Okay, so let's see if we can grab inner text off of this. And words is what we're trying to do as a number, so let's just try and log that and then do like count. All right, well, how did they do it in their example? Add text content. So they're splitting. Okay, let's do that then. They're splitting based on spaces to generate a word count. That's smart. So, all right, we're going to try to do this dot words equals that. So this is saying in this element update words to be, and honestly we should probably do a parse int here just to be safe. we're going to look through, look at this element and its slot, right? Get the inner text of the element in question, and then we're going to split based on a space that we find, return all of those matches, which would then give us an array, and then get the length of that array, which should be the number of words that we have. Force that to be an integer, and then set it to this .words. Now the fun thing about with Polymer and the way that these things start to chain together. Okay, so what we're going for here is content gets dumped into this tag. Ready lifecycle picks it up, has set this mutation observer. So now any new changes that go into the tag, it's going to run this. It's going to see, hey, things either got added or removed. Then it's going to run update words. Update words is going to run this, and it's going to generate, based on the inner text, hey, this is what words is now. Now, because words changes, and we have words text, which is computed off of words, you're going to get binding updates with words text, or words prefix changing in this case. And so whenever words changes, that means compute words text is going to run. And so we can define compute words text, compute the text to output for words. Okay, so compute words text is going to be a function, and it's going to take in words, and it's going to take in a prefix. Another fun thing here for just making things easier to read, up here in the properties, right, I'm passing in words and words prefixes, the variables, the values, so you'll get this notifying words text, hey, it needs to update whenever this changes. However, down here I can just call prefix because it's a local variable, so I can do whatever I want with it. In this case, it's just what we return. So in this case, it can be return prefix plus, make sure that there's a space, and words. And so this should return text that is effectively all the stuff, all the words you dump in, turned into a number, and then attaching the word words, colon, and I'll take that space off, in front of it. Okay, so let's see what that does. Let's see what that does with some data binding first. Okay, so I said we weren't going to have any, but we are to start here. So this will help with debugging too. I can do words text, I can do words prefix, and we'll do words. All as separate things. We're going to wrap those in divs so that they show up different places. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I use a keyboard in a weird way. Okay, so got that in place, and now let us go back to this Polymer served thing. All right, so we've got our updated documentation about how to use this, and it says the word words, but we probably have an error, to be perfectly honest. There's like nothing there. So let's see. No, I'm not going to be able to effectively add that in there. So let's update the demo. Okay, so let's put in some words and get a count. Okay. So put in some words and get a count, and then we have words here. Okay, I see an error on the other side. Let's bring that over into the screen. Okay, so we've got an error here, and it is cannot read property split of undefined. And in fact, that text count thing was undefined. So I must not have the local DOM thing correct. So I guess it might be, okay, text content might actually be the thing I wanted. This is a really useful page. The 2x version has very similar types of conventions as well, but this tells you how to interface with local children and things like that. So it's not inner text, it's text content in this case. So let's see if that fixes it. Hey, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. We've got 9 words. Okay, so why we see this is we've got the number, we've got the prefix, and then we've got the thing generated at the end. Now, and we'll see if this actually works, but the fun thing should be, thought we would be able to notice those changing after the fact. I wonder if it's not possible in the way that I have it done currently. But that's cool. So now we can wrap word count on things and we'll generate this. However, I said I didn't want to put properties in there. So this is useful, right? This is very useful to have these. I don't want these here though. So how the hell are we going to visualize them? Because I don't want to mess with it in any way. Well, we're going to do this. And this is a weird little trick that you can do. So I've got reflect to attribute. Okay, so then that means that words hyphen text is going to be an attribute. Now let's mess with CSS on the host element itself. So on the host element, I'm going to do a after, which is a pseudo selector. And then in that pseudo selector, I'm going to say content, and I'm going to do attr, which means give me this attribute's value, and I'm going to do word, is it count or word text? Text. All right, and then we're going to give this a height of 12 pixels, width 12 pixels. We're going to bottom of 0, right of 0, and we're just going to try to get this to work, to be perfectly honest, but make sure it has a color associated with it. And we're going to make this a variable as well, so someone could override it. This is going to be word count color, and then we're going to do an even more generic one, which I believe is an apply, and then this would be word count text. And I haven't done an apply in quite a while. Let me find something that has apply. I'm going to open a paper icon button just to make sure I wrote that the right way. Okay, I did. So what this lets you do is basically says like, hey, take this CSS that someone would put in this CSS variable and just dump all of it here. So it gives you a lot more flexibility. There we go. It's a little bit different syntax. I haven't written it in a while. It gives people a little bit more flexibility. You know, if you were to implement this and want to style word count in your element, now you could either just affect the color, or you have this fallback and you can kind of do whatever the heck you want with it. The other thing that might be nice is if we had like a hover state to it as well, so that if you hover over the thing in question, I don't know that we really should be defining a width, to be perfectly honest, because we want it to just say whatever the thing is. Now I can also take this word count color and I can set that variable, and we're going to set that variable equal to black text. All right, so you can immediately see, like, if you use word count, you're going to want to override that, because my default would be that this is black text. In fact, I like 2222 for no reason. So yeah, that's just, you know, giving some flexibility in that case. On hover though, all right, I don't want to mess with that. I might want to make it darker text though, or bold or something. So font weight, bold, and then this would be word count text hover, which would then allow people to jump in and do whatever they want at that point. And then I might also make a count color hover, and that we might make even darker, 00000. Okay, but maybe this one we make lighter, because it's just like some additional useful information. Okay, let's see what the heck this does, shall we? Oh, I want this to be hover, so it's accurate. Okay, so we're saying put this attribute in as the content, place it after, which is a pseudo selector. You can do before or after on an HTML element. Make sure it's 12 pixels high, so actually give that a min height. And then position it in the bottom right. I might need to do position absolute, we'll see. And then color is such wildcard, so people can kind of apply whatever the heck they want. All right, let's see what the heck this does. Okay. All right, so I've got my word count here. It didn't appear to apply the after. I wonder if I need to put a space here. I believe it's after. Could also have that wrong. Word count. Okay. CSS pseudo classes or selector after. Yeah, it's after content of the thing. I know that you're able to use these. It would be attached to it. Let's see if we just made this content stuff. Make sure that we're not screwing up something silly before we get to the more complex thing that might be screwed up with it. Oh, it says stuff in the bottom corner of the page. Okay, there we go. So stuff is down there. Word-text, which has been reflected to, or words text. Wow. Nope, still didn't do it. Okay, this is an important little data binding lesson here. Let's see if we did it to like data-words text. I wonder if that's the syntax for it. So if it was on data-words text, what we could do is when words text gets computed, right down here, we could then do this dot set attribute data-words text, and we're going to set it to the same thing as this. This would just allow you to do a little bit better data binding internally. Oh, it doesn't like that with the data. That is wild. So I know I've done that before. CSS content ATTR. Oh, I see. Let's see here. So let's paste this example up here and look at what we're screwing up. Oh, there's no. It might be that. Might be that. So let's try words text. It's not a string. There we go. Now we got words text in there. Always syntax, right? So I didn't even need to do that DataReflect. But this shows you the difference here, right? So if I could have done a set attribute, and this is what you would have done forever prior to these approaches, is you would have done a data hyphen and then whatever so that you could make up whatever attribute you wanted. You could data bind to it, put it in there. Instead, what I can do is I can have that data reflected to attribute, which is more or less doing a set attribute on this made up, quote unquote, property. So it's binding the attribute to the property. The difference being the HTML spec doesn't allow the verboseness of knowing what strings and numbers and things are, like a property would give you, versus the attributes that are native to HTML. Everything's basically just text. So now we should be able to hover that and have it do something. Maybe we don't have it do something on hover. Let's see if we can even select it to do hover. Let's try it. Whoop. I don't know if you can apply a hover state to a pseudo. Well, let's see. Now that's something else to search for in the process of doing this. CSS after hover CSS. After with hover. I want to combine after with hover. Blah, 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 blah. You have to do hover first. Okay. Let's see. So it would be hover, which is a real selector, and then a pseudo after it's hovered on. That kind of makes sense, actually. So we would do this, and then I actually probably want to ensure that these are the case. Still, all right, so we'll do relative, paste that in with the font weight bold. Let's see if that gets us the desired effect. Hey, there we go. Now when we hover over this, you see it emphasizes the words 9, and it'll do it when we hover over the thing itself versus the entire element. So that's a little annoying. We could put in a CSS transition for that. And transitions are nice and simple. I like to use this one generally speaking, which is, let's just do all. All right, so there's a transition on that. Let's see if that applies. All right, so now we're kind of suit ease. All right, so it's just a little bit, right? It's enough. Let's put it at like 3.3 seconds. Enough that it's a little bit less jarring. Now, it's just making it bold. If we did, like 10 pixels. Oops, sorry, it wouldn't be on that. That would be the font size. I've been setting height on this stuff. Font size is what I really wanted. I wanted it to be 10 pixels, and it's going to basically animate up to 12, and the color is going to change slightly. Let's make it a little bit more intense of a color change so it's smaller. There we go. Now you get a nice little whoop. Okay, cool. All right, so let's make this multiple lines so that we have another example to go off of. All right, so let's do Wordcount space, and we'll put, all right, we'll just put some end lines and all kind of stuff. So it's a little bit more what one would expect. Let's also put it in a paragraph tag to illustrate that the data actually still works, and that we should get a legit count still. There we go. So now we have up here, hey, words 9, and that's kind of annoying, to be perfectly honest. Like, you wouldn't want to put it on something that's small. But down here, it's kind of nice, actually. Right, so it sticks it all the way at the end. Why? Because it's wrapped in a paragraph. So if I know that my output is going to have HTML in it in some form, that's useful. If it's going to be inline like this, it could be a little annoying to have that style there. So I wonder if there's a way that I could style this better so it would be a little less obnoxious in those scenarios. So you can call this up, all right, and then let's make our window a little bit easier for you all to see. There we go, okay. So that's the thing in question that we're working against, is the after part. So if we did position, you can see the different places that would go. I don't want it to be sticky or any of that crap. What if we did display, right? So there we go. We can start messing with, right? It doesn't have display block. It's actually part of what makes it obnoxious. Let's give it a margin too, because that would be nice. If it was like margin 10 pixels or something, right? So it's a little bit more offset from wherever it is. And I wish that you could do, I know what it is. I'm going to do this instead, unfortunately. That's what I would rather not do, but kind of have to almost. And then I don't want margin, I want padding on it instead. Except we start pushing that stuff out of the way below it. See, so you can get into some of the issues with floats, right? You shouldn't be using floats, obviously. Display, do flex, and then flex direction, is it? I haven't messed with this, to be perfectly honest. Yeah, oh, there we go, row reversed. Sweet. I actually finally figured out how to do the thing that I wanted with flex. So I want it to appear down there, and then that way hover over it. All right, now we might want to do, because it grows in size, might want to do slightly different padding on it. Oh, geez, keep that. Okay, based on whether or not it's active. So we do margin, we'll do 6 pixels. All right, so now it'll push that stuff out of the way. 12, 16, right? So that gives a nice little buffer spacing at the bottom without it actually, having the style implications for whatever the thing is. So now let's take that, we're going to copy it, and we're going to throw it in to our element. Okay, so that is the after, and we're going to put this all up above the color part. Okay, it's 10 pixels. We want color out of there, display, padding, all that good stuff, transition, keep that out of there. And so again, this way someone could override any of these things. It's just we're trying to give halfway decent defaults. So the font size actually changes, right? It changes by 2 pixels. So let's see what happens if we take that block and the bottom and the right don't do anything. So let's take those out. That's what Flex Row Reverse is getting us now. Yay! Something useful with Flexbox. Never been a huge Flexbox fan. Okay, so put that down. All right, so font size is going to grow to 12, and padding then, we're going to lob off 1 pixel and see if we can't get it to maintain positioning. All right, so some stuff moves a little bit just during the transition of the thing. Now, what we could do is say that the things that we want to transition instead of all, right? So let's get rid of the transition down there. So this should end up being set up here, but I'm not positive. So this will help tell us if that's the case. I don't want to transition padding. I want to transition font size and color and nothing else. Let's see if that is the case. Font size. And we could add padding in there as well, I guess. All right, so it moves it a little bit. Could also have it be that it's transitioning margin instead. And the other way to help account for that, let's make these the same, right? So let's do 10 pixel margin for 10 pixel height. And then we're going to do 1010, but in this case we're going to do a 1210. That way that is maintaining the same amount of padding or height. Let's get rid of padding, and instead we'll do line height. And for line height we're going to do 16 pixels, even though it's actually only 10, and this might help solve this issue entirely, actually, now that I think about it. If we do margin is 12, yeah, let's try that. Because then if the line height is high enough, it'll just absorb it. There we go. Perfect. So now you hover over, it says, hey, word count. Right? Words. There's 53 words in that. And it's a nice little CSS transition. Sweet. So now we have built this little words thing. It can be overridden, right? And now I actually should be able to take these out because apparently they're responding to the same thing. Let's make sure that's the case. So I just want to simplify my CSS. There we go. Same as before. And so now the only things that I have to have in there that change are that it gets bold and then it grows to 12 pixels. Let's see what it looks like at like 14, if it's obnoxious or not. It is a little obnoxious, isn't it? So let's make that 12. I do like that it changes. You know, it's there, but like it's not obtrusive, right? And then another thing that we could do instead of just hover would be, we should probably add this for like focus or active, just to be safe, because if you could tab to this item, which I'm not positive if you can, but if you could tab to this item, it would be nice to have that grow as well. So I could set, there's a way to set attributes. I think it's called host attributes, and I'm not positive about this one in Polymer. So let's see, host attributes, tab index, and we're going to set tab index to 0. Whoops. Which would say that you can tab to this paragraph, basically. Hey, there we go. Cool. So now I have, you know, this paragraph that I can tab to. Do I want that all the time? I'm not positive, right? If we were to make this, you know, the words thing not visible until it had focus or hover, right, then we would want people to be able to, you know, hover over it. However, what that is from an accessibility perspective is more focused on people that have trouble seeing as opposed to can't see, because this is going to show up, right? And it's going to say, you know, words or word count 9 type of a thing. So we have an identical experience in that regard. But that's a nice little convention as far as being able to tab to these. Someone could always set the tab index to -1 if they don't want people to be able to select whatever the thing is. Cool. So I think that's probably about where we'll wrap up with this. I'm going to publish this to webcomponents.org. This could be a useful element in hacks. I'm not totally sure. It feels a lot more like an element we would put inside of something else. So yeah, I guess we'll see. It might show up in hacks at some point because, you know, if you've seen the other videos, it's not that hard to do things in hacks. I do wonder about this update words thing though, because the mutation observer is on the length of this item, which in this case, I wonder if it actually would update if I change the text in here. No, but I bet if I copy, no, it's not doing it there either. So, that's interesting that my mutation observer only seems to fire on the very first one. But that's kind of a lesser concern, to be perfectly honest, at the moment. You know, you would just wrap it on there and be good to go. So, enjoy.